Okay, let's get started. So hello everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar, Understanding Your Pension. My name is Candice Jazak, and I'm a member of the mobilization team at the PIPS National Office in Ottawa. I'm joined today by John Stark from our compensation team. John is our subject matter expert on our members' pensions. Thanks for joining us today, John.
My pleasure. Hello, everyone.
Before we get started, let's go over some key information about our platform, Zoom. Due to the size of the group today, we have muted everyone's line to ensure we have the best sound quality for everyone participating and for those who will watch later. Please use the chat box to send us a message or any questions you have during the webinar. My colleague, Catherine Gagnon, is monitoring the chat box, and she will be able to help you out. And the session is being recorded and will be circulated to everyone soon. All right, so let's get started with a quick poll. As of right now, how would you rate your knowledge of pensions? You should see the question pop up on your screen now, and I'll give you a little bit of time to vote. All right, give you about another 10 seconds or so. If you haven't voted yet, please do. And you can do that using the interactive sort of pop-up box on your screen. Okay, so let's take a look at those results. So I can see that there are 31% of folks who feel they have no knowledge whatsoever or very little knowledge of pensions. 60% of folks feel they have some knowledge, and about 10% of folks feel they have a lot of knowledge. So thank you so much for sharing that with us today. It gives us a really great starting point for today's webinar. I just want to take this opportunity to note that this presentation is designed to give you a high-level overview of how your pension works. Pensions are highly technical and governed by legislation, which, as we know, can change from time to time. This presentation is designed to give you a general understanding of how pensions work and how your pension supports your future retirement security. You should always contact your HR department for specific details and before making any major decisions related to your pension. Okay, so today as I mentioned, we'll focus on the basics of how different pension types work with a closer look at your specific pension type. We'll talk about the idea of retirement income security and the role your pension plays in that, and we'll take a look at what PIPS has planned to protect your pension. So, John, can you get us started by simply explaining what a pension is? I think many of us have a general understanding of what a pension is, but also find the details a bit complicated and confusing.
For sure. And I'd like to thank everyone for joining. I think this is going to be quite informative. So a pension is basically income received while you're retired. That part is simple, but where that pension is coming from, that's less understood. So over the course of your working career, both you and your employer make contributions into the pension plan. Then those contributions are invested, and upon your retirement, that pension is paid from that investment fund. So essentially, your pension is savings on your part and the first salary on the part of the employer.
I think that's a really important point. So employees and employers pay into pensions over time, that money is invested, and then upon retirement, the pension comes from those investments. Is that right?
That's correct. Your pension is for savings on your part and deferred compensation on the part of the employer. And when you retire, you don't get a big pile of money.
Right. Okay. And there are different types of pensions. Is that correct?
Yes. There's two basic types of pensions. You have defined benefit pension plans, and that's what most of our members are in. It provides a guaranteed annual income when you retire. Some of our members are in target benefit plans. That also provides an annual income at retirement, but it isn't guaranteed. And some of our members are in a defined contribution pension plan. That works a little bit differently. you do not get a guaranteed income at retirement. You purchase a type of pension model, pension product when you retire.
And what governs a pension? Who sets the rules for your pension plan?
So basically the rules are set out in pension legislation, which is a provincial responsibility, but some of our members fall under federal regulation. And then of course, others fall under the Public Service Pension Plan, which is its own act. But for most of the people on this call, they're either under provincial legislation or federal legislation. So that's the first thing, that's most important. Second is the plan document. And a plan document goes over your specific plan, your entitlements, how it's funded, how the money's invested, the pension formula, stuff like that. So I'll remind everyone today, that's on here, that this presentation is designed to give you a general understanding of how your pension works and for your future retirement security.
Great, thank you for that. So all the members that were invited to today's webinar are from groups that have a defined benefit pension plan. John, can you walk us through a defined benefit pension plan in a little bit more detail?
Sure. Let's start with the contributions. Over your career, you and your employer make roughly equal contributions to the pension plan. Those funds are then invested, and at retirement, you get a pension paid from the investment fund or the pension administrator. So as I mentioned before, with a defined benefit pension plan, your pension is basically guaranteed, and you receive an annual income that's calculated by the plan formula. And this amount is paid until you die. And depending on plan provisions, there could also be, spousal benefits for your spouse and dependents, etc. Also for defined benefit pension plans, like our members have, it's the employer responsibility to pay you when you're retired. And if there's any market fluctuations or catastrophes that happened back in March, it's the employer responsibility to fund that shortfall.
Okay, I think that's a really important point. So under a defined benefit pension plan, the employer is essentially responsible for guaranteeing that annual retirement income. Is that right?
That's correct. That's what makes defined benefit pension plans the gold standard for workplace pensions, and why PIPS works to protect them for our members.
So over the past couple of years, we've heard a lot about target benefit plans. Could you explain the difference between defined benefit pensions, like those that members on this call have, and target benefit pensions?
Sure. So a target benefit plan and a defined benefit plan basically work the same, except when something goes wrong. And when something goes wrong in a target benefit plan, as I mentioned before, in a defined benefit plan, the employer takes responsibility. But a target benefit plan, the members take responsibility. And so then it's up to the members to decide, are they going to increase their contributions, not the employer contribution, their own contribution, or are they going to cut retiree pensions that are in pay? So this is why PIPS is against it, because it pits different employee groups against each other. This, of course, everybody probably heard of Bill C-27. This was the bill that introduced target benefit plans and basically would allow federal employees or federal corporations to change their defined benefit plans into these more risky target benefit plans. So PIPS fought against this, and along with the Canadian Labour Congress and several other bargaining agents, and basically won. It's been placed aside, but we're still diligent because we know that similar legislation like this could be reintroduced by future governments.
Okay, so how do we protect our defined benefit pensions from employers that maybe do want to move to a target benefit pension?
Well, the first thing is you have to understand your pension, and you have to understand that the defined benefit plan is much superior to the target benefit plan. Moving from a defined benefit plan to a target benefit plan would be a downgrade. And as I said, it shifts the risk from the employer to the members. So we need to deliver a message, and we need our members to be aware of their solid pension plan so that if something were to happen, that our members would support us, because this is what unit bargaining agents are all about, so that we make sure the government doesn't undermine our members' pension plans.
Okay. And where can our members find out more information about their pensions? For example, how much can a member expect to receive when they retire?
Yeah, I get this question quite often, and unfortunately, I can't help because we don't have individual and personal information. I would not have the member salary or how many years they worked. So they would actually have to go through their HR or their pension department and ask for like a pension estimate to get this information.
Okay. And what happens if a member changes or leaves their job before retirement? What happens to their pension in that case?
Well, in that case, the member would be provided with options, such as converting their pension into the transfer value, the present value of their pension, and moving that into a locked-in RRSP. Some of that money would also maybe not be locked in, which would then be able to go to a regular RRSP or taken out in cash, but that would be taxed. Or you could leave the pension with the employer and take a deferred pension. So you really would have to talk to your, like if you're thinking about doing that, you'd have to talk to your HR or pension department to get this information. And then if you have any questions with that information, well, then you can come to us. Our team is available to discuss the options with you so that you can make an informed decision.
Okay, that's great. So that's a lot of great information. A lot of great information in a short amount of time, but we know that our workplace pension alone isn't the only part of a secure retirement.
That's right. Your workplace pension is only one part of your retirement planning.
Can you give us a little bit more detail?
Sure. So pensions are considered a three-legged stool. This is the analogy often used when you go to pension seminars. The first leg are government pensions. This would include your Canada Pension Plan, CPP, or your Quebec Pension Plan, QPP, also your Old Age Security, OAS, and if you qualify as a low income earner when you're retired, then GIS, or the Guaranteed Income Supplement. So that's leg number one. Leg number two would be your personal savings. That would include your Registered Retirement Savings Plan, RRSPs, or a tax-free savings account, TFSAs, or any other savings and investments that you have. And the third leg, of course, is your workplace pension. So the three of these vehicles together is what provides you with a secure retirement when you finally do retire.
I see. I know a lot of my friends and family don't have a workplace pension at all. Is that common?
Unfortunately, yes. And this is why that stool is usually not solid, because people are missing that third leg for their workplace pension, because only about 35% of Canadians have a workplace pension, and less than half of those have a defined benefit pension plan like our members do.
Is it possible to get by on just CPP, OAS, and GIS, even if you factor in personal savings?
Well, the government plans weren't designed to provide a full pension. So if you only have your CPP and OAS and maybe you qualify for GIS, you're very close to the poverty line, if not in poverty. So many seniors in Canada are basically living close to that poverty line. And then we have like our young people today, they're in precarious jobs, working on terms and everything. So they're not in pension plans if you're only working, on a temp. So this is going to set them up for precarious retirement. According to Stats Canada in 2018, only 22% of the people that filed their taxes that year actually contributed to an RRSP. And the average household saving was only about $850. That's not going to provide a sustainable pension. This is why PIPS is focused on protecting our members' pensions, but also why we continue to fight and support the Canadian labor movement and saying pensions for all.
Okay. Thanks for all that information, John. Before we move on, I want to do another quick poll to see how everyone is feeling. So after having heard all of that, I'm looking to see how folks would now rate their knowledge of pensions. So you should see that up on your screen now. I'll give you a little bit of time to register your answers. All right, I'll give you about another 10 seconds to do that. All right, so let's take a look at those results. And we have some movement, which is great. We still have about 5% of folks who feel they have no knowledge whatsoever or very little knowledge of pensions. But the bulk of folks, 75% of folks feel they have some knowledge, which is fantastic, and 20% of folks feel they have a lot of knowledge. So that's really wonderful. Thanks so much again for giving your feedback there. Still, I know folks probably have a lot of questions for John. So I'm going to remind folks that you can use the chat feature and send your question along to us. Catherine Gagnon, my colleague, is monitoring the Ask a Question account, and she'll be able to feed that information to us so I can pass your questions on to John. So I have first one here from Dana to get us started. And she's heard a rumor that there's an ideal time of year to retire. Is that true?
No, that's more of a myth. Some people think that if they retire at the end of the year, it's better, or at the beginning of the year. Some of them say it's because of indexing, but it doesn't really matter because your indexing will be prorated the following year. So if you retired in January, then you would get indexing for a full year. But if you retired in December, of course, you want to get indexing for that year. You know, you start your pension in January. So it doesn't matter what time of the year you retire.
Could you explain what indexing is for folks who might not be familiar?
Sure. Indexing is the cost of living indexation or adjustment. And basically what it does, it takes, it's the inflation rate, you know, that Service Canada looks at, and, you know, they post, the Bank of Canada posts what the inflation rate is. And so that's what your pension would be used to index. So if the inflation rate for Canada in 2020, for example, is 2.2%, then next year, if you are retired this whole year, you would get a 2.2% increase or thereabouts to your pension. Okay,
so that's, you know, there to make sure that your pension sort of retains its value or your purchasing power over time. Okay. I have a question from Hussein, and they're looking to know what happens to their defined benefit pension upon their death.
Okay, so if you're already retired and you pass away, then it would go to your spouse, common law, same sex, etc. If you're not married, if you're single, then it depends how long you've been retired. And if there's any amount left, that would go to your estate and be distributed. If you were to pass away while you're still a member, then it depends on the plan. Some plans allow for an immediate pension to your survivor. Other plans would pay out the commuted value, the transfer value, the present value of your pension to your spouse, etc. So that's what would happen on death. If you want specific information for your plan, then you'd have to contact your HR department or pension group department.
Okay, that's great. I have a question from Pascal, and I have a feeling this is something, well, he might have to contact his HR for the answer to this one, but I'll ask. He's looking to know what the formula to calculate the defined benefit pension would be. And I see here that some, JP is saying that NAV Canada has some automated tools available. Is it common for plans to have things like that?
So most of our separate employers who are probably on this call, like NAV Canada or Yukon Hospital or Ottawa University and some of the others like that, they do have tools, and you could use them. You could also go through the pension department or the HR department and ask for a pension estimate. You're allowed to do this at least once a year at no cost. But you're also probably receiving an annual statement every year. Your pension annual statement will also provide you with all the information that you've accrued up to that date. And then it'll also tell you what your forecast is to have when you turn age 60 or 65. I have to use both dates because some plans, some of our members have a normal retirement age of 65 and others have a normal retirement age of 60. So it depends.
Okay, that's really helpful. I have another question here from Dan. And he says, I've heard people talk about commuted value of their pension plan. His question is, what does that mean and why is it important to some people?
Okay, so the commuted value is basic, and often in the government they use the term transfer value instead of commuted value. But what it is the present value of your pension. So if you were inside a money purchase or a defined contribution plan, you know how much is in your account. It's your contributions plus the employer contributions and any investment earnings, and you can go there and you see it just like your RSP, you know the number. But in the defined benefit pension plan, you don't have an individual account. So what they do is they calculate it actuarially, how much would you have earned at this point in time, and if you invested according to the various models, that you would be able to buy the pension that would be equivalent to what you would get if you took a deferred pension. So basically, by taking the cumulative value out of the plan, you're basically assuming all the risk rather than having the plan assume the risk. But you would be able to get the present value of your pension as at the date of your termination. But if you were to do that, you might want to talk to us first to go over what some of the pros and cons are. There's certainly, the cons list is a lot longer than the pro list.
Okay, that's helpful information. These questions are coming in fast and furious. I have one from Corinne, and they're asking, can we collect the CPP at age 60 and still continue to work and then collect our workplace pension upon retirement?
So you can request CPP or QPP at age 60 and continue to work. Once upon a time, you weren't able to. Now you can. And while you're working, though, you would continue to pay into it. And so every year they would recalculate and you would get a little bit extra. But if you start at age 60, you're starting very early and you're going to get a penalty. And it's quite a severe penalty. I don't have the exact numbers here. You'd have to check with Service Canada. But that penalty would stay with you for the rest of your life. So if you're still working, you may not want to collect CPP because all it's going to do is give you more income and that's all going to be taxed.
Okay, that's good to know. I have another question from Christina. They are asking, how is it possible to transfer pension contributions from Quebec to Ontario? They have some contributions there. I'm assuming they mean Quebec. And they'd like to contribute that amount to their workplace defined benefits plan in Ontario. I know that we often get questions about people wanting to sort of merge their pension plans, but is that something that can be done?
Well, honestly, I don't really understand the question, because if you're in a pension plan and for example, you're moved from one location to another location, it doesn't really matter. All your contributions are in the pension plan, so there's no transfer of contributions. If the member is actually asking about, for example, they had a prior employer, and with that employer they had a pension, and they want to transfer it into their current employer's pension plan, then they have to do that usually within the first year of being transferred into the new employer. And then they have to check to see if there's actually an agreement between the two employers. In some cases there isn't, and so you are unable to transfer that money over. And in other cases you will be able to. So you would have to, you can contact us if you need assistance on that. But the first step is to check with your HR department or pension group, if you have one, to see if you can transfer that money over from like a prior employer.
Okay, that's really helpful. is an interesting question. We have another one from a member. They deferred their pension with one employer, which I guess was then sort of transferred. And so they had a Health Canada pension, and now they have a municipal pension because their employer, I guess, changed or transferred. And they're looking to see if they can collect both upon retirement. And I think the answer is yes. If you have more than one pension, you get them all. Is that right?
Of course. Of course. I mean, if you transfer from like Health Canada and you went into, say, Transport Canada, you're still part of the same pension plan. But for some members, for example, if you're in the health industry, you might be working with Health Canada and have part of a federal pension plan, but then transfer to a hospital where you're working as some type of nurse or something like that. And then you're going to be under the Ontario Hospitals Association pension plan. And then you might even leave there and go into the private sector and be lucky enough to be one of the people with a pension plan. And had you not transferred your pension over, because you don't have to, when you retire, you would receive a check from the Health Canada. So under the Public Service Pension Plan, you would receive another pension check or direct deposit from the Hospitals Association pension plan, and then that private plan that you're in at the end. So some people don't mind having like these three different checks coming in. Other people say, well, I want to transfer all my money over. And again, that's only possible if there's an agreement between the two plans. And sometimes it's good to have, your pension money in different spots in case something goes wrong with one company. Now, with public stuff, or you don't have to worry because it's always the government's always going to be there. But with some of the private companies, especially if they're smaller ones, it might be a better idea to transfer that money, if you can, into a more secure pension. But you don't have to. It's up to you.
Okay, that's helpful. I have another Quebec, Ontario question, but this one's about QPP and CPP. And I know a lot of our members who live in sort of the Ottawa-Gatineau area wonder about this. If I work in Ontario and I live in Quebec, will I receive QPP or CPP when I retire?
Okay, so that's a good question. It's one that we don't really cover, but I can tell you the answer. You receive QPP or CPP depending on where you live. If you're living in Quebec when you're retired, QPP will pay you. You may have worked your whole career and maybe even lived in Manitoba, for example, your whole career, but when you're retired, you move to Quebec because the CPP and QPP have an agreement that, okay, you're living in Quebec now, Quebec pays. And it could be the same the other way around. Someone could have lived their whole life in Quebec and contributed QPP, but when they retired, they moved to, for example, Nova Scotia. Well, that's under CPP, and CPP would pay them.
Okay, that's helpful. I have a question from Julian, and they want to know, if my workplace pension makes my retirement income too high, is it possible that I will not receive any CPP or OAS benefits?
No, it doesn't matter how high your pension is or how much extra earnings you have on the side. You contributed into CPP or QPP, and that will not be clawed back. You get what you deserve. For old age security, though, there is a clawback. This year, the clawback starts at around 80,000. So if your retirement earnings are over 80,000, then OAS begins to claw back. And once you're around 120,000, you wouldn't receive any old age security at all. But your CPP or QPP is secure.
Okay, that's good information. And I'll just remind folks, if you do have questions for John, please send them to us in the chat box. My colleague Catherine is monitoring that and can sort of move it through the pipe so we can ask it to John. So I have another question here from Asma. And she's looking to know, how can we protect our defined benefit pensions from employers that are looking at these target benefit pensions like those that were proposed with Bill C-27? I know there are folks who are still a bit concerned about that.
It's a difficult thing because most of our members, the pension isn't in the collective agreement. For a few of them, it is. So if it's in a collective agreement, of course, it's more secure. But for those that it isn't in a collective agreement, they can change it. Now, this is why I was saying before, PIPS monitors, the pension plans to make sure that the employer isn't doing anything or trying to switch something. And if they are doing something like that, we would let the members know, and we would hope that the members would support us and stand with us to say, no, we're not going to let you do that. This benefit is too important to us and our members. So, you have to make sure that you're listening and aware of what's going on in your pension plan. As I mentioned, you need to know about it and keep in touch with PIPS.
Okay, that's really helpful. Some folks are, so the commuted value or the transfer value, I think that's a piece that people are really interested in. Could you remind us, Matt is asking sort of pros and cons of taking that commuted value, I'm assuming when they leave their job.
Well, the pros of taking a commuted value, I'm a little bit biased. I don't think there's a lot of pros, especially when you're in a solid defined benefit pension plan, because you're taking all the risk. So the number one con would be you're taking on the risk, because when you take that money out, that present value out, and let's just say it's $200,000, and let's just say that would get you a pension of, say, it's not a big pension, so you said, I don't really care. So it's a pension of about $20,000 a year. So now you have to invest that $200,000, and most pension plans have a rate of return that they try to hit. And that rate of return is net of inflation. So you're looking at over 5% at least a year. Now, some people in their RSPs, might be doing quite well and getting, 10% returns. If you are one of those people and you feel confident that you'll be able to get returns like that, then, it might be a good idea to take out the transfer value. But you never know what's going to happen, whatever it is, 5 or 10 years when you're going to retire. Because when you do retire, you can take out all that money and do whatever you want with it. You still have to purchase some type of retirement product, like an annuity, LIRA, etc. So before, you had no worries. You might even be entitled to post-retirement benefits, and your pension would be indexed. Now you've had the worry of investing that money for that whole time. You don't know what the interest rate is going to be at that time. So when you're buying your pension, you could be in a very expensive time to buy a pension. You would have to pay extra for stuff like a spousal survivor benefit, for cost of living adjustments, CPI indexing. You'd also have to take on any other risk, like if a market would fall, like a crash. So there's a lot of things to consider, and no one knows what's going to happen, for example, 10 or 20 years down the line. Whereas taking a deferred pension, you know exactly what you're going to get. So you could already start your retirement planning with your other RSPs and your new employer. So if they need more information than that, then I would invite them to contact us through Better Together, and we can provide the list. Okay,
that's really helpful information. And I'm seeing some folks who are entering some questions, sort of, talking about their household income or their own personal pension. And, I understand that, it's when you start going down the road of thinking about your retirement income security and what your pension looks like, it's natural that these questions come up. But I want to remind folks that, when you're looking at your personal pension and your personal retirement income security, you need to be talking to either your HR department, your pensions department, so they can give you the specific details related to your workplace pension. And you may also want to consider getting in touch with a financial advisor to talk about RSPs or TFSAs or sort of those other savings vehicles that are available to you. They're really in the best position to provide you that advice. So before we sort of move on, I have one last question from Carolyn, and she is asking how many years can she expect to receive the CPP?
Okay, so that's a good question. Some people do feel that CPP or QPP, et cetera, that they have an end date, but they don't. That goes on until you actually pass away, and there is a survivor benefit there as well. So just like your pension once you retire will go until you die. So does CPP.
Okay, that's great. Well, thank you so much for that, John. And thanks so much to everyone for your fantastic questions. That was awesome. So I just want to remind folks that we will be sharing contact information at the end of this presentation. So please follow up if you still have questions that we weren't able to answer today. Again, I want to remind folks that PIPS does not have access to your personal pension information. But there's a lot of great other great information available to you. For your government retirement program, so your CPP, your OAS, your GIS, we recommend checking out the Government of Canada's website, their public pensions page. You'll find great information about those programs, as well as a calculator that will help you understand your personal pension benefits. As I mentioned earlier, for your personal savings options, there are a lot of resources available to you for those as well. Your financial institution, like your bank or credit union, or an independent financial advisor can help you out with that. And lastly, for your workplace pension, you should contact your HR department if you have a pensions team, and they can provide you with specific information about your plan and your pension. Before we let you go, I want to give you a sneak peek at what's next for PIPS. Today, we really only scratched the surface when it comes to pensions and retirement income security. Pensions are incredibly technical, and we could easily talk to you for hours, as you can probably tell. Today's session is about giving you a broad understanding of your pension and how it works so that you can begin planning and thinking about your own retirement. And as we can tell from this conversation, that planning should include working to protect your workplace pension. So this fall, PIPS will be launching our Protecting Pensions campaign. This campaign will take members to the next step, from understanding their pensions and retirement security to action. We will be hosting more webinars and launching some great tools and working with members to lead initiatives in their workplace. And that includes folks who continue to work from home. So keep an eye out for an email soon about our first actions. So let's review everything we covered today. We talked about the basics of how different pension types work with a closer look at your specific pension type. We looked at the idea of retirement income security and the role your pension plays in that. And then we talked about our upcoming campaign and what you can expect to see from PIPS this fall. And that brings us to the end of our session. Thank you again for joining us. Again, if you have any outstanding questions about this presentation, our upcoming campaign to protect pensions, or frankly anything, please email us at bettertogether@pips.ca. We're quite happy to make sure that your inquiries are routed to the right place. So thank you again for your time and have a wonderful evening. Take care.